What is interesting to me about that is that it was the first time that we received a radio signal from above the ionosphere. What this team of Project Diana did was to send a signal and bounce it off the moon to see if it could be received. And it was received. It took a long time for that to happen. They actually worked on that for years, but finally they had all their coordinates correctly aligned, and they were able to send the signal directly to the moon. And in 2.5 seconds, the signal was received on Earth. Without that having happened, we would never have built any machine that we would want to communicate with radio. And I think that it is one of the most important things that ever happened to space exploration, since it was the seminal point. And I'm just going to add this because I think that it's curious. That event happened on January 10th, 1946. In 1947, that was the first time that we had that incident that we call Roswell. A year later, just the idea that we were thinking in terms of extraterrestrial visitation a year after the Project Diana received the first signals from above the ionosphere, I think is curious. And I wonder why no one has ever really followed that trail and explored that possibility that maybe there was something, going on. Anyway, I think that that's foundational. But with that dish, in I think it was 2006, Princeton University took an interest in it because it had been left behind by the Army when it moved out of Camp Evans, and they decided to refurbish the dish. And there was a professor who was named Dr. Dan Marlowe who helped to refurbish the dish, and he set it up to be able to look at the 21 centimeter hydrogen radiation. So we used the dish to look at pulsars, interstellar space, and the farthest that we looked at was the Andromeda Galaxy. We looked at M31, and we looked at everything between here and there. And of course, we looked at the sun. We were also able to look at satellites going above us, and we were able to download information that we could turn into images that showed us whether the hurricane was coming in our direction or not. And some of those images were fantastic when there was a hurricane that was going above us on the East Coast, and they were published. It was a great, great way to use the dish. I'm interested in looking at Three Eye Atlas at the moment. Is anyone out there looking? Have you listened? What have you heard? Anyone?
Uh, I'll tell you, uh, every time you pick up a newspaper or turn on a news program, there is something strange happening with Three Eye Atlas. It is not your run of the mill celestial object that we're kind of used to seeing, comets and so on. This thing is actually doing things that, in theory, it should not be doing. Why that is, it's open to speculation. There may be some people that know more about it than others. But the thing is, it is happening so quickly. And as Lori said, it's something that should definitely be, if it's not being explored diligently, it really should be because it is unique. So, anybody want to add anything about the Three Eye Atlas? Yes, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Dr. Avi Loeb from Harvard seems to be the most vocal right now all over the TV and internet and so on and so forth. And he says there's a 40% chance that Three Eye Atlas is artificial.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the reason that he says that is because of the way that it has been behaving and of the a way that it seems to be constructed. Nickel, primarily nickel, it is it is emitting hydrogen, water at tremendous speed. It's changed the tail. I'm not calling it a tail anymore. I'm calling it an emission because the direction of the tail has changed, and it is now directly pointing toward the sun, just as it is approaching perihelion. It's going behind the sun. We cannot see it at this point. We don't have the instruments to look at it where it happens to be. And on October 29th, it'll be at perihelion, as close to the sun as possible and as far away from us as possible and hidden from our view. It is curious that its tail has turned into something completely different, that it is pointing at the sun directly, and that it is out of our view. We don't know why it is doing this. It seems to be behaving in ways that defy the physics that we understand, the physics that we know. But we know with the physics that we know that we don't know much, right? We know about maybe 5%, and I think that number is going down about what exists. We see evidence that gives us an understanding that we know that there is dark matter and dark energy. The evidence is there if we apply the physics that we have. So we know that dark matter exists and we know that dark energy exists. However, we cannot directly look at either one of those things. So we don't really know what's going on in a lot of ways. But we can see hydrogen. We can see the 21 centimeter hydrogen radiation. We can also look at elements. That's how we find exoplanets. We can see what's going on to some degree in interstellar space. But what we don't know about, we cannot see. So if we cannot look at 3i Atlas when it is at perihelion on the 29th of October, we don't know what it's doing. We don't know what will happen or what happens on the other side of the sun at that point on that day. It will emerge on the other side of the sun, and at that point we can look at it again. If you have a radio telescope, you can try to look at it from 21 centimeter hydrogen radiation. I can share some information about how you can do that, where you can point. If you have a simple ham radio, you can listen to the watering hole. Listening is good. Listening is a way to form community for this. We heard the wow signal directly from the place that this object originated in. So that, there's a lot of information that just should be considered, should be looked at, even if you're very, very serious about looking at space and space exploration. There's just so much going on with this particular object that I think everybody should be aware of it. And if you have the ability to, you should join the community of people who are looking. I think because of what's happened recently, it's changed its trajectory. It's changed, its tail has changed. It is going to be doing things behind the sun when we cannot see it. And we should be looking. Everyone should be looking. I think a lot of people are. So that's my question. Are you looking? Do you have a radio, a ham radio? Do you have a Baofeng even? You can, listen at particular coordinates on a Baofeng frequencies. Uh, is anybody here looking? Can we have a discussion to talk about it? Anybody
I don't
looking?
have the equipment that you're mentioning at the moment, so we can't do that.
Okay.
Is there any daily or weekly report that on the internet that we could take a look at or listen to? Is
Sure.
there anything like that?
I'm going to try to share my screen. Let's see if I can share my screen
Yeah,
here
that
and
should be
I
no.
can show you what I do know.
Well, spaceweather.com may be a place to get some
Well,
information.
spaceweather.com is excellent. Thanks, Joe. Yeah,
Oh,
let's see. But there's a lot of stuff. Here's an interesting page to look at. Now, I'm going to try to share my screen and let's see.
Joe, did you say spaceage.com?
No, space weather. There's if you go to spaceweather.com, the front page, you'll see a picture of the sun,
Oh,
which is pretty much a current picture, and it shows all the solar activity. It'll show you, especially now we're in a solar maximum period, so we're getting a lot of high-powered events that are taking place on the sun. And of course, an X-class flare could knock out power, it could knock satellites out of orbit, and do all types of interesting things. So you'll see that, but it also gives you other information. It may not go into great detail about 3i Atlas yet. However, my guess is that sometime as more information becomes available, that they will be doing more on that. It's free. You go out there, and it's a good piece of information, generally speaking, about space and space weather. Bruce,
Space Weather Live is excellent, and every day you can check it to see whether or not there are um, CMEs, coronal mass ejections, which we call solar flares. We can see where they're coming from, whether they're facing the Earth, and whether they will be disrupting communications on the planet. I can give you the address for several websites. This is a great website, and it gives you specific information. It's small letter I, 3, and then lowercase Atlas, ATLAS.com/trajectory, TRAJECTORY. It gives you specific information about where 3i Atlas is. Let's see, because I would like to give you the coordinates if you have, or the frequencies that you can listen if you have a ham radio. But let's see, ham radio operators, because this is great. Then everyone can hear, everyone can listen. Let's see. Okay, so here's the way. I'll just read this so that you can think about this. The first thing that you need to do is to determine your geographical location and then find the correct frequency. Now, I had it before. It's basically where the watering hole is. Joe, do you know the frequency specifically for the watering hole?
no, but I know the general location of it. It's behind Mars.
Well, you can actually listen to it with, let's see, at between 1420, which is what the dish used, and 1662 megahertz. So if you have even a small Baofeng, does anyone know what a Baofeng is? It's a handheld radio. If you have a handheld radio, you can, if you set it at 1420 and 1662, listen to the direction that 3i Atlas is coming from. Everyone should be listening.
Does it have a directional antenna?
Yeah, just a small handheld ham radio, basically. Yeah, even that would be very useful. What happened when we heard the wow signal is that, does everyone know what the wow signal is?
Oh, why don't you refresh everybody?
Okay, let me go. So the wow signal is a signal that was heard in 1977 by some guys who were just looking at the at the universe. That we can see everywhere in the universe a faint signal that tells us that there was some sort of a big bang. Now, the wow signal was a strong narrowband signal. It was small. However, the fact that it was heard and that it was repeated and continued to be repeated for 72 seconds, it meant something. This signal had never been heard from before. It was specific, it was clear, and it was definitely coming from a specific location. And then it stopped. It was heard at 1421, the 21 centimeter spectral line, hydrogen radiation. That's why I say, if you possibly can look at it, the 21 centimeter radiation, but it was still heard at 1420 megahertz. And that means anyone could hear it. Anyone who has a ham radio, even a small one, could have heard that signal. That's why I urge everybody to start listening if you could possibly listen.
Just a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Part of the problem, they could not say this is definitively an alien signal because they couldn't run all the protocols. There's a set protocol for validation of signals. So, they don't want people just going out and saying, no, we know aliens are out there. We received the signal, and so on. But part of the protocol now is you have to share the location that the signal is coming from, along with the appropriate frequency and so on. And then it has to be shared with at least I believe it's two other radio telescopes in this case. And they would have to validate that they are also receiving the signal. And then they would do a triangulation and they could narrow down exactly where the signal would be coming from. So that has happened. Actually, they've had signals at least 3 times now that could conceivably fall into the intelligent signal criteria. However, they've never been able to do the follow-up protocols to prove the fact. One of the interesting ones, I think it was the Southern Hemisphere, our closest neighbor is only 4 light years away. And supposedly there was a signal, and also they have discovered an exoplanet around that star system. The other one is 55 light years away from us, and it's actually a red dwarf. Of course, we orbit a yellow dwarf. And the red dwarf had actually 7 planets orbiting it, and 5 of those 7 planets fall within that star's Goldilocks zone. So, and a signal was supposedly uh, received from that general vicinity. So we could be in a crowded corner of the universe,
A
even
little
though we're
bit.
on the outer fringe.
I've just posted, what I'll do is that I'll post at least the websites where you can find this information. You can see, I just posted in the chat the image that showed us the strength of this signal and why it was so important. It's the amount of time that a signal is heard that is really important. If it takes a long time, well, when you're listening to signals, if it takes 60 seconds, that's a long time, actually. It's specific, it's coming, and it's keeps coming. This is one of the things that you can see if you go over to the chat and go to that particular window. You can see there was actually a signal that was received for a while. Um, I'm going to post some other websites that give you information about how to look at it, how to look at.
Hey, Lori,
Yeah,
have you hit the share button?
say that
Uh,
again. Yes, I have the share button, but it doesn't, I don't know. Trying to share.
I can see it, Joe.
Can you
oh, you
see
can.
it?
Well, I clicked on your link in the chat,
Yeah, you see it,
but
right?
yes.
Okay. Oh, also, Robert Morningstar has his hand raised. So
Hi.
okay, yeah, yeah, now I see it. Okay, we see it there.
So there's a
Okay,
lot going on here.
hi,
Yeah.
Robert, how you doing?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to see you all. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Hi, Bruce, Nick, all
Hey,
friends. Hey, listen, I put a link into the chat to an extended article that I published on the Morningstar Report on Substack. You can hear the wow signal. You can hear Avi Loeb
Great,
and you can hear
great,
Michio
great.
Kaku. And that's a great site, Lori, that you just gave us. I logged into that one too. So
It is, yeah.
afterwards, I have some technical information on 3i Atlas that we could share. Okay. All right.
Thanks. Thank
That's
you.
all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Lori, I have a piece of the antenna that received that signal hanging on my wall.
You do. How
Yeah.
exciting.
Yes.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
How did you get
with
it?
the
How
actual
did you get it?
data that's on the chart here, that one that says "wow" on it, that is on the plaque as well.
How did you get that piece of the antenna?
I joined the SETI League, and they
Oh,
gave it to me.
that's fantastic. That sounds great. Wow.
Yeah,
Again,
it is a wow.
it is a wow. Um, so yeah, I really the reason that I'm here, I'm glad that Joe invited me, is because I really think that this is a very important thing to do at this particular time before the 29th. So if you can get yourself, if you're listening to SETI, if you can listen to SETI with your computer, if you can listen in any way, go ahead, please listen, because it can be anyone on this planet who is listening that might be able to hear something. And we don't know if Three Eye Atlas has some, something that will happen. Avi Loeb is calling it a black swan event. And what he means by that is that anything can happen. We don't know what could happen. So if there is a signal emitted or energy emitted or anything emitted towards the sun, and since its tail is pointing towards the sun, we should really be listening at that particular day, at that particular moment, shouldn't we? So if it's possible to do that, that would be really, really great if you can do it. Now,
By the way, I received a report. I'm working with Richard Hoagland's group and David Sereda. I
okay,
received a report that on October 13th,
yes,
light pulses were picked up from it that was beeping Fibonacci series numbers.
oh,
So I believe that Avi Loeb is right. There's nothing we've ever seen that's like this. I saw early on that it had an element of self-luminosity. When it was way, way out there,
that's
we
right.
got an early photograph and there was too much light coming off of it. And also the anomalies that you've spoken about, plus the speed is beyond any comet that we ever tracked. Most of them are 30,000, 20,000 miles an hour. This one's doing 152,000 miles
That's
an hour.
exactly right. But at a distance, and here, this is kind of cool. It is very far away from us. At a distance, it can be tracked. In other words, if it were very close, we would not be able to follow it. But because it is so far away, we can follow it. We can actually see it. And that's, why we should be looking at it. Um, yeah, we will be able to visibly see it after it passes the sun. And that's something that we're looking at in November 13th, November 15th. We should be able to actually visually see it. If you have a visual telescope that's powerful enough, it'll probably be a blur, but it's better to look at it even if it's a blur. We don't know what it'll look like after it passes the sun. It may change completely, and we may be able to see much more because of the light emissions that you're just talking about. We did see light emission. We also saw hydrogen being emitted from this object at a tremendous rate. Water, we also saw carbon dioxide being emitted at a tremendous rate. We look at its composition and we see a tremendous amount of nickel, which is very unusual for a comet.
Also chrome.
And chrome. This is behaving in the strangest ways. And, yesterday or the day before yesterday, it is reported that NASA launched its interplanetary defense system. Now, I cannot get confirmation from NASA about that on their website, but it's everywhere else. And people who are serious people who are seriously looking at space are saying that yes, that's what NASA did. And I don't know, no one knows because they're not saying why it's done this, but that is what the original telescope, which is the Atlas in Chile, saw. That's what it's there for. It's there to prevent us being hit by something that we would not have seen otherwise. So everything seems to be falling into place to say that we should, you know, watch
I
out.
find it very suspect, actually, and I don't think it's a wise idea to go out and shoot it if it's not even coming near us. This is the DART program. About 2 years ago, NASA destroyed one of a pair of asteroids that were traveling together, uh, Didymus and Diphorus.
Yeah.
And when they blew up Didymus, it exploded and cast a yellow cast, almost like painted the other asteroid. So internally, it wasn't really an asteroid. So I think, I fear that they may be going out there. I don't think they can reach it, by the way.
No,
64
no,
Oh,
but just to, I
also,
think,
Go ahead.
just
There is
in case. Something, I don't know what
also also there is no nuclear weapon that we have that would be able to deal with an object that size.
The size of
It's
Manhattan.
something
that's
like
right.
3 million tons. Okay, it's the
Yeah.
size of Manhattan, and so you're not going to vaporize something that big. Matter of
No.
fact, interestingly, they just sent out. This is before Three Eye Atlas, but there was actually concern about having the appropriate nuclear device that could be used to defend against regular sized asteroids, not large ones. And there's the warhead that they were looking to use was the Whiskey 71 warhead. The Whiskey 71 would be appropriate size wise and yield, and also the fact that it used, I think, silver. Silver was a major component. So the type explosion that you would have would be appropriate to try to change the course of an asteroid or to destroy a smaller one. But actually, what happened? They sent off to not Sandia, um, one of the nuclear, the one down in New Mexico, not Sandia, the
In
other
New
one.
Mexico.
Yeah, the nuclear lab where most
Los
uh,
Alamos. Los
Los
Alamos.
Alamos, yes,
Oh,
Los Alamos. Anyway, they sent off a query, an official query, asking that device not be dismantled. And for some reason, they decided they were not going to honor that request, and they went ahead and they dismantled it. Now, what that means, I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a nuclear physicist, but apparently that is a concern to some people that are in the know, that we may not have the appropriate device that may provide some type of protection against some type of asteroid. I'm not talking about aliens. I'm talking strictly asteroids. So
The dart that they used on Didymus to destroy Didymus was
mhm.
not explosive, it was kinetic. And
kinetic.
I'm thinking if they try to do something like that with something like Three Eye Atlas,
Yeah,
they're not going to even dent it, but they might piss it off.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's my concern.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Well, I think that what they have done is put something up there just in case we need to defend ourselves, and that's at least prudent because we don't know what will happen if there is a black swan event. We don't know the kind of energy that could be emitted toward the sun, what kind of a reaction our sun would have. There are things that we don't know about. It could be anything, an element that we've never, seen or heard about. Um, it's
You know
almost,
what I
yeah.
think NASA is worried about is that Avi Loeb has suggested that
Mhm.
once it goes around the sun, it could start to deploy von Neumann probes, which would
Oh,
be uh,
Yeah.
possibly directed to come to Earth like scout ships,
right.
and it would keep a distance. But the von Neumann probe theory is a very interesting theory, and Avi Loeb is taking that very seriously. So I
He
think
is taking this.
he's scared the pants out of NASA. So that's a what if situation.
I think the Three Eye Atlas has also scared the pants out of NASA. So Avi Loeb, has suggested these things, and then guess what? Three Eye Atlas has proved him right to some degree, and that's the real problem. That people needed to sit up and pay attention to what's going on. So you're right. We don't know what's going to happen when it comes back around on the other side of the sun. Maybe it's using the energy of the sun to, sling back. But the thing is that it seems to be moving on its own power because it isn't following the way that an object would move due to gravitational forces. It isn't doing that. So that's a strange combination of things. I think Avi Loeb is onto something. And jokingly, he says, if you're going to take a vacation, take it before October 29th.
Yes.
2 days away. I don't think any of us are going on vacation right now. But if we're going to be home, it's a good time to look. It's a good time to watch what's going on and stay on
Lori,
top of it. Yes.
um, in an hour, I'm going to be talking with Scott Stride, who works for JPL.
Oh, wonderful.
He designed the telecommunication system for the Mars rover. Now, he's probably under very strict, rules, what he can say and what he can't say.
Yes.
But is there any question you want me to ask him?
Yeah. Why did they launch the defense system, the interplanetary defense system, 2 days ago? That's what I'd like to know.
But
Uh,
good
Okay.
question.
yeah. What is the intention of that? Did it happen? Can he verify that it did happen?
Verified that that had happened. Yeah.
And then why did it happen? That's my question. What were they thinking? What is their line of thought here? And if you want to ask further, you can ask, what do they intend to do with it? If
And to take notice of the pause in his response. Yes.
and take notice of the pause. I think that if we were to, we went through the pandemic in 2021, and I have my own personal ideas about what that was, but I think that we were involved in a data gathering exercise to see how we could save ourselves should a global effort have to be called upon. And during the pandemic, that is what we did. The world shut down. We gathered tremendous amounts of data about human beings and how all human beings on the planet would react should we need to ask all human beings to do a certain thing, whatever that thing might be. And we added an element of people would die. I think it was, a, a terrible thing that we went through. Millions of people died, but we did gather information. Now, should this thing pose that kind of a threat to humanity, I think that we wouldn't want to tell everyone that this is a big problem that's coming. It wouldn't be on national TV. We would have to deal with what would happen after the event. We don't want to cause panic, of course. So I think that's probably why things are very quiet, because we don't want to cause any kind of mass hysteria. But and not only that, but in science, being careful about what you say and what you do is the way to approach a scientific method. You have to do things in a particular order in order to be able to get to the truth. So there's a lot going on. A lot is happening here with this. Yeah.
Okay,
But
let
please
me
ask that question if you would.
Okay.
okay, let me take a quick break here. Not for advertising or anything, but just I wanted to involve a couple of people. Some people have joined tonight that I do not know. One, Beverly Rubik, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here. I guess I got it through your email, Robert. I'm on that list with Hoagland, and so I decided to join. It's a rainy day here,
Yes,
etc. And I've been interested in this topic. I'm not an astronomer, I'm a biophysicist. But anyway, I appreciate uh, the invitation.
well, I was happy to forward it
Welcome.
because Joseph is a very good friend, and this is a really good group. And Beverly, nice to talk to you, and thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you for Robert and for inviting Beverly. And it's always good to have fresh blood. That's meant in a loving way. So, okay.
Right.
Okay, Beverly, do you have any comments or questions about this?
No, and I came a bit late, so I'm just catching up. And I do think, there's more to this than we've been told officially, like most topics in
Yeah.
our society these days. So we have to figure out what's true. And it's a tough task in so many areas.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Okay, who else who hasn't participated yet? Who would like to stand up and make a comment or ask a question?
Joe,
Mindy.
it's Mindy Gerber.
Hey, Mindy, how you doing?
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you, Lori. This is very interesting. My question is for Lori. Do you really think Three Eye Atlas is a comet?
If it is a comet, it's not a comet that we've ever seen before. And it is nothing like what we know a comet is. This will rewrite the, I guess, the book on what comets can be. So at least that's what will happen when we see another object that behaves like this or that has the composition that this has. We're going to have to add all of that information to what a comet is because nothing that we have ever looked at, nothing that we have ever seen has ever looked at or behaved in this way. So it does change the way that we'll be looking at interstellar objects from now on. That's for sure. Now, is it a comet? We don't know yet. Let's see what happens when it passes the sun and it comes out on the other side. See if anything
Okay,
happens at perihelion. We don't
okay.
know.
Somebody has we have a lot of background noise, so I'm not sure who's in a crowded area right now. But Rich, that's you. Okay, you can mute for, except when you have a question. If you want a quick question, then unmute and then go back on mute. No, okay. All right, let's see. Nick Curto, how about you? What have you got?
Lori, just a quick question for Lori. Lori, when are we going to be able to see it again once it goes away from the sun? What is the date again?
I think it's November 13th. We can ask that question. Let me just, I don't like to guess, but I do believe that that's what I remember. So I'm going to Google it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can we visually seen, right? Visually. Are you interested in the visual? Yeah.
This is one of the interesting things. It's very strange that the timing and the placement of the object, whether it's natural or intelligently made, the fact that it's closest approach to the Earth, it's going to be basically on the other side of the sun, so we won't be able to see what it's doing. Okay, it could be changing course again. Of course, that will change its orbit if it's in some type of an orbital situation. But when it does come back into view, we kind of expect it to be in a certain area if nothing changes. If something changes, however, then that will change where it would be tracking
Exactly.
to. So a lot of questions, a lot of interesting, perhaps.
So I've got a specific date. It isn't the 13th, it's the 3rd. It'll be November 3rd. And on November 3rd, we should be able to visually see it again. Let's see if this comes up.
Rich, please put yourself on mute. Rich, put yourself on mute, please.
There's some kind of interference going on in the background.
That's Rich
Yeah,
again.
there
He's
it
got
is.
to
There
keep
it goes.
himself on mute.
It's a it's an asteroid party. Okay, Bill Belfer, what do you got? Up, unmute.
Thank you. One thing we haven't mentioned that Loeb mentioned was this thing from wherever it came from, and apparently it's millions and maybe billions of miles away. It came into the planetary plane of our solar system at 5 degrees off the plane.
Yep.
He said there was like a 1 in 500 chance that would ever happen, that's possible. And the other thing I found interesting was that it's going to be closest to Earth. I might be wrong on this, but this is what I heard. Closest to Earth on Christmas Day.
Really?
2 days before.
Which is, yeah,
The 23rd. Exactly. It's amazing.
Is it like trying to tell us something like, here I am.
Yeah.
The other
Could
strange
it be
thing,
Santa? Could it be Santa on Christmas?
the other strange
Maybe,
thing
maybe
is
it
the
is.
convergence, is the
Oh, that means
convergence of three
NORAD will
objects.
be tracking them.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, Bill. Okay.
Excellent
Okay.
point.
The
So-
other unusual thing is the convergence of two other irregular comets, Lemon and
Yes.
Swan, at the same time that this thing is passing through. So it seems like it, and my intuition says this is a scout mission, and perhaps they are not just touring the solar system, but are maneuvering close to be able to study comets at the same time,
Yes.
which would indicate a very high level of intelligence, far beyond anything that we can even comprehend at this time. By the way, I'd like to say Beverly Rubik, since Lori mentioned the COVID lockdown and the possible connection to a global crisis dress rehearsal. Beverly Rubik is an expert in understanding virology and things like the biochemistry of pathogens. And if I remember what Sean Whalen said to me about you, Beverly, um, that's so you know who Beverly is. She's a very accomplished um, doctor and specialist in that field.
Okay.
Beverly, do you use that information, the data that we gathered, um, in your work now?
I think you have to unmute Beverly.
Are you there? Beverly, are you there?
I just asked her to unmute. Yeah, she shows up. She may have walked away for a second. So we'll try again a little bit, Lori.
Sure, sure. I think that there is something that needs to be said here, because if we're thinking of interstellar travelers with the physics that we have, understanding the distances, it seems to me that even if there are other biological civilizations that have existed or will exist, it's the Drake equation. Why haven't we heard from them? Well, it's the distance and time, space-time makes it impossible, almost impossible with the physics that we have. And I keep saying that because unless an Einstein-Rosen bridge within our physics understanding emerges, we physically cannot outlive the distances as biological beings from one part of the universe to another. And that's an important thing to understand, I think, when you're thinking about alien visitation. However, that's with the physics that we have. And I think that with quantum understanding, we can see that it is possible for there to be multiple dimensions, many dimensions. So there may be some intelligence somewhere that is able to travel between dimensions, or generate something like an Einstein-Rosen bridge that basically folds space between two points in space and makes it possible to travel from one very vast distant point to another distant point. But it's hard for me to wrap my mind around the idea that an object that is 10 billion years old, as they have tried to age 3i Atlas, 10 billion years old, has not gone through another solar system. Those two pieces of information don't make sense to me. If it was traveling for 10 billion years and it has not gone through a solar system, that's very unusual.
Interestingly, the work that they've been doing with qubits and quantum physics, not too long ago, I think it was Google. They were working with one of their qubits. They had their chip design for their quantum computer, and they had the design, and what they were doing, they were putting through their protocols because they wanted to test to see how it worked. So they had the tests had the known answers, if you will, and they would run these algorithms through this chip. It's a massive chip, gigantic, and so they were expecting to see the results coming back the way they wanted them to show that the chip was working properly. Well, they started receiving data back from the protocol, and all of a sudden they started receiving data that they had no clue where it was coming from. And the computer scientists that were working on this, now this is preliminary, so I'm sure that they've come up with a valid, not too strange response as to what happened. But one of the scientists said, the type data that we're receiving, we think maybe this could possibly be an alternate universe. So if I mean, we have little things like photons that when they're paired, they can be massively far apart, and you excite one photon and the other one reacts instantaneously. So this is quantum. Okay, the quantum, if we go into a quantum world, Lori mentioned about the Rosencrantz bridge or the wormholes or the portals. Well, they're probably all over the place because, you know, what we don't know far exceeds what we think we know. And I think as we go further along, as we become more mature and more in tune with the universe around us, we'll start seeing some of these. We'll start seeing the indication. And then maybe the science will catch up at some point where we can actually use these. So faster than light travel, even though Einstein said you cannot exceed the speed of light. Well, that may be true today, but what about tomorrow? What about if they find a way of surfing time? Space time, it works. It's there. We all know that. So
Well, I think Einstein lied.
I'm sorry.
I think Einstein lied, and I'm working on a paper. It's called Einstein Lied. By the way, I've been briefed on some MJ12 subjects, and this deals with interdimensionality. And in the briefing that I've received, MJ12 determined that there were several species of extraterrestrials, and some of our familiars, you know, tall gray, short gray, cryptoid, insectoid. But they said that the most interesting form of extraterrestrial was something they called transmorphic entities, or TMEs, transmorphic entities. They describe them as not created beings that exist in another dimension. They are composed of pure mind energy, that they are curious about our world, and they can open what we call portals now and come into our dimension, and they can transform pure mind energy into anything they want, whether it be animate or inanimate. And that they had actually, I would call it conjured or invoked it, and that they had been introduced to it by one of the other EBEs that we're familiar with. And it said, only once in the history of MJ12 has a member of MJ12 had the privilege of standing in the presence of a transmorphic entity. And that was mediated by one of the other EBEs that they had made contact with. On another note, I say Einstein lied because I have a document, a draft letter that was written in 1947 by Einstein and Oppenheimer to the Truman administration on how to deal with an extraterrestrial species or civilization that has decided to settle on planet Earth. They didn't ask permission. They just decided to settle on planet Earth. And Einstein and Oppenheimer, who were the real heads of MJ12, because Eisenhower refers to them as the ultimate directors of MJ12, that how to integrate this entity into our civilization or our world without disrupting the social fabric. And ultimately, Einstein and Oppenheimer recommended signing a secret treaty with the extraterrestrials that would give them settlement areas and what I call roaming rights or ranging rights, and to keep it secret from the world. And that became the basis of the national security state. So with these meetings that have been happening in Washington about disclosure, I wrote to them, to the committee, and to my senators from New York that you legislated the national security state into existence, and you have to legislate the national security state out of existence if you're ever going to get to the truth. So TMEs, my joke about transmorphic entities who can transform pure mind energy into anything they want, whether it be animate or inanimate. My joke is, for all I know, that vase sitting on my shelf could be a TME just watching my behavior and my activities every day. I share that with you. I'm going to be, by the way, a little plug. I'm going to be at the New Life Expo, part of the UFO panel, on November 15th in New York City. And so if you want to meet, and just, I think Laura Eisenhower is going to be there, and a couple of very well-known people in ufology. So you're welcome to come. I'll talk to you later.
Sounds like fun, Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure will be.
You know, following on what you said, Robert, I have been a space explorer with that radio dish antenna looking at the universe for a while now. However, what I am very interested in, and I think the one thing that I want to research the most is consciousness, because obviously without consciousness, we would not be thinking at all. We would not have this conversation. We wouldn't be able to even know the 5% of what exists in the universe that we know. We wouldn't have come up with our physics. We wouldn't even be wondering. Consciousness, in my opinion, is the key. And it is that, you know, that bridge to physics from metaphysics. We need to understand how it is that we understand, how that we encounter existence itself. And neuroscience has given us some answers, but there are so many questions that have gone unanswered. We do not have answers to. We should really be paying attention to consciousness as well. If we make it past October 29th, right? So
I've heard. I'm in contact with a group of physicists who are deeply involved in that quest to find the quanta of consciousness.
Jack Sarfati?
Jack Sarfati and Russell Targ, and that whole group that was over in Stanford, and that is the biggest quest in physics today, to find out the seat of consciousness.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that is really primary at the moment. We can look and we can expect to encounter all sorts of things, but without consciousness, we can't understand any of it. So consciousness to me is that thing that we need to be paying attention to, especially because we've developed AI. And AI, I think, is a tool that we can use to understand how consciousness works, how it develops, and where it might even arise from. We'll see. So you're very interesting about those beings that are mind alone. We may be mind alone, considering how incredibly limited we are in our perception. We cannot see the particles that are all around us. And we need this limit in perception in order to exist on this earth. But we know this earth is minuscule compared to what exists. So
if Beverly is around, I would invite her to comment, because I know that she worked a lot in neuroscience from our common colleague in Ireland, Sean Noylan. So if she's around, maybe she can give us some insights into what's going on with consciousness and neuroscience.
Beverly, are you out there?
Yes, not.
She's still signed on, but I asked her to unmute. She must still be away from her machine. Okay, well, we'll have to try again a little later on.
right. Thanks, Rich, for the comment in the chat. Yeah. So, those are the two things that I think everybody should be thinking about. 3i Atlas right now until October, or rather November 3rd, when we can visually see it. And consciousness is super important. Understanding consciousness. And yes, Robert, I have been reading about quanta and how we encounter everything. This is the forefront of understanding consciousness from the physics perspective. Yeah.
Well, if I may, Lori, where are you located, please?
I'm in Wall Township, about 3 miles from the radio dish antenna over on Marconi Road. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. Where are you? I'm sorry. Where?
I'm in Wall Township, New Jersey.
Oh,
Wall
okay.
Township, New Jersey, about 3 miles away from the dish. So if anything should happen, I would, get myself over there and try to see if I could see. In order to use the dish, you have to be a licensed ham radio operator because there are some rules. You can listen. Everyone is free to listen. That's why I say, please listen. Everyone is free to listen. But a ham radio operator is the only kind of citizen that can send a signal. And with the dish, we would send a signal to the moon called Earth Moon Earth transmission, bounce it off the moon, and then that signal would be returned to our radio. That would be the receiver. Interestingly enough, we would send the signal, and using the signal as a carrier for voice, people would visit the InfoAge Space Exploration Center and say, "Hello, Moon, how are you?" And in 2.5 seconds, they'd hear their own voice bouncing off the moon, saying the same thing, "Hello, Earth, how are you?" So that was one of the things that people came to do, bounce their voice off the moon, Moon, Earth transmission. So everyone can listen, though. And that's, I think, the important part. You can hear with whatever instrument you might have. And the dish is there. If there's something to be heard, I'm going to go and listen, see if I can hear anything. Yeah.
Interestingly, that same dish, about 2.5 years ago, there was a gentleman that came in for a tour. And I gave him the full Monty, the tour, and then we usually finish up with we let him send a signal out and bounce his voice off the moon. And I got through the entire thing, and he couldn't control himself anymore. And he blurted out, he's an astrophysicist, and he was from the Jordell Bank down in West Virginia. And he said, "We've done it." And I said, "Done what?" First of all, I was embarrassed. I'm not an astrophysicist. And here's the real deal, right? This guy really knows his stuff. Anyway, so I said, "What did you do?" And he said, "Well, we finally observed a gravity wave." And I said, "A gravity wave? Really?" I mean, that's a big deal. Everybody knows gravity's out there, but nobody's ever observed a gravity wave. And then he went on, and he explained how they did it. And apparently there was a consortium of 2 or 3 other radio telescopes around the world, and they all worked on the same project together. And the way they discovered that wave was they started looking at binary black holes. And these are black holes that are, the gravity has them rotating around one another until they merge and one devours the other or whatever. But the thing is, by the way they react, they would actually cause the wave itself to be visible to the equipment. So that was a major thing. I mean, to come up with that type of an event, and then to figure out, what does it mean? What does it mean to us? What is it going to mean? Little things. I was a navigator when I was in the service, and the navigational aspect of traveling, if we're able to travel trans cosmic areas, what are we going to need to navigate from one point to the other? This may be it. This may be that answer. Or it even may be the energy source. Lori mentioned about dark energy and dark matter. Not too long ago, we just had Dr. Wilson, Robert Wilson, who is, he and Penzias are the ones that discovered the Big Bang Theory. And they came into the antenna, the one behind me. But before that, I met him at Bell Labs, because that's where they made their discovery of the Big Bang. And I had the opportunity to ask him, why is the universe expanding at a greater rate after the initial explosion? To me, it was counterintuitive. And he looked as puzzled as I was. And he said all he could think of is perhaps it was dark energy and dark matter. So we're on the cusp of learning things. The Big Bang Theory may be disproven at some point. It hasn't been yet, and that was 1978 when they came up with that. So exciting times. And these little meetings like this and the sharing of ideas is so important, because you don't get it from normal sources usually. But here is a
Joe,
cross-combination.
Joe, with regard to the gravity wave discovery or observation, a group of amateur astronomers about 3 or 4 years ago felt that they had found something like that much closer to home. They were taking videos of the moon, and their videos captured a line passing from the top to the bottom through the moon, as if a wave were passing not just through the matter of the moon, but the space-time of the moon. And I think that gravity is the medium for instantaneous communication through the universe, personally, intuitively. Uh, and that the gravity waves may be captured or generated for a new form of communication system. But that's pretty deep stuff that people,
Well,
most,
yes.
most scientists don't want other people to talk about.
Right.
Well, I think that's kind of similar to the reason Project Diana proved that you can send signals into space and receive signals from space. It's because it's been done before, but that was the first time it was documented. And if you don't document something, it still stays in the theoretical area. Once you can prove it, now it becomes something you can hang your hat on. Maybe it's the same thing here. Maybe the way the consortium uh, observed the gravity waves the way they did, they were able to document it. They've got terabytes or probably petabytes of data that went into learning about that aspect of it. So maybe the thing between the moon, it sounds like a sound theory to me, but it still has to be proven or disproven.
Yeah.
You always disprove theories. You don't
I wanted
prove.
to ask Lori. Lori, are you going to do a presentation? We've got the screen share going, and we all seem to have gotten sidetracked.
So I don't use Zoom that often, but I have so many things that I wanted to share, and I don't know how you can see it. Can you see what I'm showing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can
I
see
can see it.
anything you put on your screen. Anything you put on your screen should be
Yeah.
visible.
Okay, so
I
then,
wanted to know if this was your computer we're watching.
yes,
Yes.
this is your computer. This is my
Yeah.
computer you're watching. Let me, there are some things that I want to get rid of, this, take away, and see if I can bring this up. So this is a way to determine if 3I Atlas can be observed with a radio telescope. If you look at this, you can, and you have the equipment, you can look at 3I Atlas as it's going, across our sky. That'll have to happen after November 30. So if you want, can you take a screenshot of this, and that might help you?
I just did.
If you're interested in doing that, great. Let's see, there's more that I want to share. Let's see if I can find the rest now.
Joe,
I think it's
Yeah.
have you had conversations with Lori?
Many conversations.
yes.
Have
Lori
you
was my
met?
mentor.
Have you mentioned my work up in the Walker River Valley and the possible alien probe that we detected there?
Yeah, Bruce wrote a very interesting book. And are you familiar with Wallkill?
Yeah,
Pine,
Walker River Valley,
Pine Bush?
Pine Bush. Well,
Am
I was
I
able to
familiar with it? Am
determine.
I familiar with Pine Bush? Are you asking me that question?
Yes.
Have you?
I am not. So tell me.
Well,
Okay,
it's a UAP hotspot for many decades, and I wanted to do a magnetic study of the valley because Ellen Crystal, who wrote the book Silent Invasion, had
Mhm.
claimed that there was underground activity. And so I borrowed a magnetometer and went out and did a 3-year study on it with 1,800 stations. And in
Fantastic.
that area, I discovered a number of major anomalies below the surface that are not man-made.
And this is
And
Pine Bush where?
in New York, it's near Newburgh, New York, uh,
Yes.
northwest of Newburgh. Yes,
Okay.
and in fact, it's near Ellenville. After it wasn't named after Ellen Crystal, but The thing that was most fascinating is I started my magnetic study there back in 1992, and I that I was measuring was going crazy magnetically with over 5,000 gamma spikes of magnetic signals coming out of the ground everywhere. And I took the instrument back to my lab and they checked it out and said, it's fine. It's not malfunctioning. I went back out into the field and all those signals had disappeared. And I started my magnetic field study, 1,800 stations over 24 square miles. And what I found in right where I started everything was a signal coming out of the ground on a periodic basis whenever the constellation Bootes was overhead. And I was able to get uh, Burns, William Burns, to he did a special documentary on my work there, and he found he was able to get a ground penetrating radar system to come out and look at what was below the ground because I had documented three signals, very powerful magnetic signals coming straight out of the ground whenever this, whatever it was operating. And others had seen other signals come out of the center of this triangular area. And the ground penetrating radar imaged a portion of the whatever object it is. It's embedded on in Ordovician black shale, which is 420 million years old, and it is radioactive and still functioning today.
Interesting. Amazing. Do you have any idea of what that object could possibly be? What is your
Well,
idea? What do you think it
well, we
is?
have a lot of smaller triangular craft flying around the Pine Bush area. I've got lots of videos and photographs of these craft, but this baby is over 365 feet on a side. It's bigger than a football stadium,
Wow. Wow.
and it's only 9 feet below the surface.
So if it's emitting this signal, do you think that it can be received somewhere? Who's receiving it? Why is it emitting the
Well,
signal?
that's why I think the Pine Bush area is a UFO hotspot. It's because there are those out there receiving this signal who
Yeah,
are
somebody's
picking it
receiving.
up, and they're following it to its source.
What is the source? I wonder. That's
Well,
yeah,
where did this triangular craft come from?
right, exactly.
All we know is that trying to signal something, some receiver in the constellation of Bootes.
And how old is it? 530 million?
420 million years old.
420 million. So think about that. Talk about the problem of the Drake equation. So 420 million years ago, there could have been this other civilization that visited Earth.
Yep,
And
and they landed on granitic masses with many types of elements within them, rare earths. And there was a mine in the southern part of New York, right on the border, Franklin mines, that were active for decades, de tunneling deep in over a mile down and pulling out rare earths. And I mapped my 24 square mile map showed at least half a dozen of these granitic masses below the surface, and some of them pop up above the surface, and you can go up there and dig in them, and they have these rare earths in them as well. So my guess, it's just a guess, is that this was a mining probe.
some sort of a mining probe. I think that it's very interesting that you've done this work. It's documented. You can show where these things are. And when we're having these meetings of full disclosure, that things are not connected, that should be connected to the conversation.
Oh,
There,
absolutely.
there
I
should be a
totally
connection.
agree.
Right, right. I think that that's part of the problem is that we, you know, um, compartmentalize what we understand and don't put one and one together and understand, what that
Well,
means.
I have actually pictures during the winter when the snow above this triangle is melting. And during the summer, you can walk over it and the temperature will drop 10 to 15 degrees from the uh, air temperature around it. And on occasion, the ground will shake and vibrate. So it's functioning.
I went, I went up there.
There. Yep.
I went up there with Bruce to Wallkill, to this area, to explore it one night many years ago. And the my conclusion is that this object is acting like a VOR. In flying, when we fly airplanes and we're navigating, we have these transmitters that send out signals in 360-degree radials, so we can tune them in and fly from, as I've done, from Boston to Carmel, New York, to Peterborough, and so on. And it, the impression I have is that this thing may be using gravitic energy to send out a beam that is specifically to guide UFOs or UAPs. I don't like the term. I still call it UFOs.
Right.
To that area, specifically when booties is over the site, in the sense that the energy is connected to booties, and booties turns it on, and booties turns it off when it passes. So that's my theory, that it's really a homing device, and this may be what's responsible for all this activity. I mean, the activity around Pine Bush is legendary.
Mm.
Bruce has more experience up there than anyone else I know. And Bruce also did recordings of a black triangle approaching him, and he was recording the sound. And the sound that he recorded had a reverse Doppler effect. Bruce, you want to talk about that? That's
Sure.
one. Even Jack Sarfati was saying, "Man, this is out of this world." You know, because that
Yeah.
just happened. In
What's important to understand, Lori, is I wanted to document what these things were that were flying around, diving through trees and into the ground and coming up out of the ground time and time again. And I mapped the area where the one of the main entrances to this area is located. And I have lots of photographs of showing these. Some of these craft are as big as a 747. And for me at least, and for Ellen, they made these weird sounds,
Mm.
very strange sounds. And it were, and I thought that initially that they were trying to mimic the sound of a conventional jet in order to camouflage what they really were. And I analyzed the frequencies of these sounds, and everything is totally opposite that of our understanding of Doppler. Okay, it's reversed, so that the frequencies are multiple frequencies, up to 12 separate frequencies paralleling each other, diving to lower and lower frequencies. And after it passes over the microphone, the frequencies increase, go up, 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 up. And I have that again and again. I'm doing another audio YouTube video. I have many on there that you can go and you can. I have one
Yeah.
that's called The Six Sounds of the Manta Ray. So,
I'll take a look at it, writing this stuff down so that I can look at it. Six sounds of the manta ray. And Joe, you'll have to, you'll have to catch me up.
By the way, the wow. Let's go back to the wow signal. If you go to the link, the article that I
Yep.
published on the Morningstar report about Three Eye Atlas, I have the wow signal in there, so you can listen to it. But a couple of weeks ago, I did a program with my friend in South Korea, and we got into the wow signal. And what I did is I kept slowing the wow signal down
Yes.
to half, to 1/4, and at one point, I said to myself, I've heard this thing before. But where I heard it was the most unusual place. There's a man named Jim Willis who recorded crickets. And what he did was he slowed down the sounds of the crickets. And what he produced is something that he calls God's chorus of crickets. The sounds of the crickets become almost like hymns or sacred sounds you would hear in a cathedral. And then I took Jim's God's Chorus of Crickets, and I played it simultaneously with the wow signal, and I found that there were frequencies there that coincided. So my conclusion is that the wow signal may be an interception by SETI of communications between or among insectoid species.
That's fascinating.
Lori, just a quick story about the pine bush I want to share quickly. And that is, I was up there one evening and I was with one of the townspeople, and we were sitting on a car. It was probably about 8 o'clock at night. It was dark. The sky was very jet black and the stars were amazingly bright. And I looked way in the distance. It was all black hills. And I see this orange light. And I said to the person who was from Pine Bush, what kind of tower is that? Is it a television tower or is it a radio tower? And she said, "Oh, Nick, I see what you're saying. It's dense forest. There's nothing there. Absolutely nothing." After she said that, it started moving and it went right over our heads, literally. In other words, my take, they knew we were there
Right.
and they decided to do a little, I don't know, hey, you, hello. I mean, it was deliberate, right over, I don't know how high it was. I couldn't tell. Probably very high. But I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
Also, Scott Stride, the engineer I mentioned before, who works for JPL, he's looked at my data of the magnetic data coming off this alleged triangular probe, and he said those magnetic beams that you recorded with your magnetometer are not the signal that it was sending. They were the uh, orientation beams for a central signal that would correct it so that it would track its target in space when that target flew overhead.
Interesting.
Are you interested in going and looking to see whether or not these signals are being emitted at this particular time?
Oh, I would love to.
We've got Three-Eye Atlas, is there a way for you to get up there and
Well,
to,
now I live about 2,000 miles away.
that's the problem.
Yeah, and
Oh,
also Jason Yates, who lives in New Jersey,
yeah.
he went up there with his friends with the magnetometers, and they recorded signals coming out of the ground on top of it.
And you're using
Also,
a magnet.
magnetometer. He
Yeah.
said, and the
Okay.
Prometheus did a survey with their UFO hunters, and they recorded 1.7 Gauss signals coming off of it. That
My
is
brother
huge.
lives in Newburgh. He may be getting a visit.
Well, have him get in contact with me because he's in driving distance from there.
Right.
That would be great.
I'd like to go back
Very
to
interesting.
Bruce's observation of UFOs going into the ground, which might sound kind of far-fetched to people. However, I know two other people, one in Fort Collins, Colorado, and a friend of mine in British Columbia. The one in British Columbia is an abductee. And actually, his daughter had everything to do with me coming out from undercover. I was a secret UFO investigator for 50 years, but the little girl's essay in UFOBC.ca drew me out. But he has found an underground UFO base in Canada where he sees the UFOs descending into a forest and coming out of the forest right into the hills. And my friend in Colorado, I told him to stay away from the place because he keeps seeing UFOs coming out of the ground and going into the ground. And a couple of years ago, someone with a video camera was monitoring this site, and they were observing a UFO departing near Denver, leaving the ground at 12 o'clock every day. So he got repeated videos of this thing leaping up and coming back down, but it was very precisely timed around noontime. So they do have this ability. We're talking about transmorphic entities, pure mind energy. It seems to me that they are able to transform themselves into this pure immaterial energy. And it takes me back to a report that I read in U.S. Army Central Intelligence Group, was the CIA before it became Central Intelligence Agency with the paperclip Nazis. But a letter was written to General Lucius Clay in 1946 by a former sailor in the Kriegsmarine, which is the German Navy, but he was a submarine sailor. And he talked in the letter to General Lucius Clay, saying that he had gone on a voyage from Germany to Japan carrying German scientists, and that he had a lot of time to sit and talk with them. And they told him that they had developed spirit ships. Those are his words. They had developed spirit ships that could materialize and dematerialize and cross vast distances instantaneously. So I believe that this is all secret in-house technology, reverse engineering, that the national security states has kept under wraps.
National security.
But now is the time to bring it out. So I'm bringing it out. The Army files that I'm talking about, U.S. Army CIG files, are available at the Black Vault. And John Greenwald's Black Vault, if you look for them. Back to
So,
you.
having to work with the chair of physics at Princeton, I've had to be able to work within certain confines, right? Is anybody here familiar with the PEAR, PEAR
Oh
program?
yeah, oh yeah, John Mack.
Right, Jan. He was fantastic. And this was someone who was the chair of the engineering department at Princeton for 18 years. And then he started to understand that consciousness was the most important thing to study. And he was funded by Princeton for this study. And then, of course, he went under a lot of review. And so his work was found inconclusive after many, many years. I have not been able to talk about my own personal experiences with other people who work with Princeton because of that kind of an attitude, obviously, that persists in academia. But I have had some personal experiences that I guess have led me to the things that I think about in space exploration in general. I have actually seen triangular craft and with other people, so that it's not just my perception, but other people were there together. And you turn to one another and say, "Do you see what I see? Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And everyone agrees. And then the thing sped off
Thank you, Laurie, for sharing that. That's
at
very
a rate
important.
that was, at a rate that just was not within the confines of what we understand. So I have had that personal experience, and I think the personal experience is something that you can't, you know, uh, you can't deny. In other words, go back to the movie Contact, and I think that that's why Joe said she's our early hour way. You cannot deny personal experience, and it stays with you. If something like that happens, it stays with you. I also met, interestingly enough, in the middle of the ocean on a cruise ship, some two women that were 8 feet tall, or close, literally, and one was the chief science officer in biology at Ames Research.
Wow.
It was a completely unusual personal experience. I felt drawn to talk to these people. I think because they looked unusual, but when we started talking and I found out, what their role was, and one of them was involved with SETI, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was amazing, and I actually got her business card. Her name was Stephanie Langhoff. I You can look her up. And I actually have, researched that she was the chief science officer at Ames Research. This person was not like any other human being I had ever met. A very different, very pale, super blonde person. And those are my two experiences that make me say, yeah, I think that there are people or things happening on this earth that I cannot explain.
Have
And
you seen Charles Hall description of the tall whites?
yes, that's what I thought
Yes,
immediately when I saw this picture.
yes,
I thought this is a tall white, or what they describe as a tall white.
yes.
Uh, just
Laurie,
yeah,
Laurie, just to
yeah.
support your perceptions. Um, I had a long-standing friendship with Scott McClellan, who was a science officer at NASA. He
Okay.
was with the space program from its inception, the Mercury, the Gemini, the Apollo, the space shuttle program. He used to monitor. He was actually the shadow pilot, let's call it. When the space shuttle went up, they had science officers mimicking every move that they were doing. And he would monitor the space shuttle mission with live transmissions from outer space. He told me that he once saw the space shuttle open up its bay doors and two American astronauts conversing with an astronaut that was 8 feet tall. And the 8 foot tall astronaut was giving directions to the American astronauts.
Yeah,
And they were the bosses. They were telling them how to execute the mission. And as far as perceptions are concerned, I met John Callahan in Washington at a UFO conference or press conference at the National Press Club in 2008. And he was the FAA vice assistant director who investigated the 747 encounter with a gigantic UFO over Alaska. It was a Tokyo Airlines transport flight. And he had all the data, he had all the radar returns, and the CIA barged in and seized it all and said to him, "This meeting never happened. You were
right,
never here. You'll never talk to anyone about it." He got very, very upset. And he said to us, you have to ask yourself, who are you going to believe, the government or your lying eyes?
right.
Well, I'll always believe my lying eyes rather than the lying government. So,
Laurie, I
Hold
put
on,
into
hey,
the
hey,
chat. I
hold
put
it.
into the
Hold,
chat
Yeah, I
two.
downloaded. Yes, I
That's
downloaded.
the manta ray,
okay, we have two
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay,
and
I
diving
downloaded
into the
what you
ground.
sent. It's
Yeah.
fascinating. And I'll look at this. Joe and I actually held a UAP conference many years ago. Joe, do you remember? Right.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I thought it was, and it coincided with that UAP document that was generated on June 25th. Was that 2022, I think? 23. It was a while ago. Anyway, we had very credible witnesses. We had a United Airlines pilot that was absolutely convinced that
Yeah,
there were UFOs, now called UAPs, uh,
he was a
flying around the
lieutenant.
skies.
Yeah, he was a lieutenant, retired lieutenant colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel,
We
he's
also
just
had
been,
a major. We also had George Filer,
yeah,
and we had another pilot. So we had basically
right,
three aviators, all with UFO experiences.
exactly, exactly. So, unfortunately, the community that we have to talk about this is under you know, such scrutiny that we have to follow the scientific method and we have to allow for, the criticism that we receive. However, who are you going to believe, your lying eyes? Yeah. So I have to say that that's why I'm involved in this, despite the fact that I really have to work within the bounds of physics. But um,
Thank
that's
you, Joseph,
about
for
me.
bringing her on for that, so we can meet her as well. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Lori will be back
Thank you
again.
very much for everyone being here.
Okay, everybody. We have another meeting next month. Um, we're going to have another guest, Dennis Roger Denocla. I don't know if anybody's familiar with him. He's a Frenchman. A lot of people thought I was having the original Frenchman on, but this is another Frenchman. But he's also written several interesting books. One of them is What's Going On with UFOs and Exocivilizations. I read the book. He's got some interesting and unique insights that I think you all might find stimulating. Okay, and I think a conversation will be carried forward from that one as well. So I want to thank everybody for being here. I will be uploading this to YouTube. It is
Laura, I put my webpage, homepage there that will give you lots of data on my work, okay?
I've got it. I've got it. Yeah. Thank you.
all right. Thanks, everybody. Didn't get the chance to hit everybody up with the final comments, but Millie, Mindy, Kathy, Beverly, thanks for all being here. We'll get to you all next month.
Joe, thank you so much for putting this together. This is incredible stuff. Thank you.
Thank you for being
See
here.
you guys.
Please look, listen if you possibly can, especially on October 29th.
You got that. Absolutely. And I
Thank you.
want to have you as my guest for one of my podcasts
Yes.
coming up.
Okay.
We'll talk about that.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Lori. Love
Good
this.
luck.
Thank you, Joe. Nice meeting
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Nice, Lori.
Nice to meet
Go
everyone.
Golfer.
Thank you.
Mindy,
And
good
hello
night,
to-
everyone.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thanks, Lori.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.